Hey everyone, we're just gonna wait a couple of minutes to get started here. All right. Hello everyone, welcome to Technology Tuesdays, Be Your Own Travel Agent. My name's Lydia Nimke and I'm really excited to bring you today's presentation. I will let you all know that your microphones are muted and your cameras are turned off, but feel free to ask questions at any point in time through the questions box located down below, and I will be sending out a follow-up email to you with a link to a recording of today's presentation as well as a handout with lots of different apps for you to check out and their little icons. So don't worry about taking any extensive notes today. With us in the background today, we have Beth Gabriel.
Hi, everybody. Hope you have fun learning about traveling. I'm looking forward to it myself. Let me know if you have any questions, and I will read your questions out loud to Lydia when the first available opportunity arises.
Thanks, Beth. All right. So let's get into it for today. Um, and go ahead and talk about some of the major concepts. Um, First of all, we're going to talk about the kind of availability of the resources we're going through today. They are all freely available, but we'll talk about that a little bit more. Then we're going to talk about location services and how important that is when you are planning and booking things when you're traveling. And then we'll get into kind of the meat and potatoes of today and talk about booking travel. We'll talk about transportation options, finding activities, and navigating with foreign languages and foreign currencies. Alrighty. So for all of the resources we're going to cover today, they're going to be mobile applications. Now, some of them will have websites as well that you can use on your computer and that you can use on your phone, but not all of them. And I will be making that distinction. Whenever there is a website available, I use the website to record this just to kind of keep everything as, similar as possible. But again, not every one of these resources is available as a website. Some of them you have to download the app. And further, some of the apps will only work on a phone. They won't work on a tablet or an iPad or a Kindle or anything like that. They'll only work on a mobile phone. So I will do my best to make that distinction whenever it arises, but just so you all have that sort of context going in. Now, for location services, who use these mobile applications to their fullest extent, you have to turn on your location services so you can, learn where the closest restaurants to you are, or how far of a flight you need to take to get from point A to point B. Obviously, your device can't just know this stuff unless you give it permission to. So you will have to turn on your location services. In the browser, it often looks something like this. It lets you know the website that wants to use your location. This should be right here. This URL should be the website you are on. You always want to make sure that that is matching up accurately. And you can allow that so that it can, better do its job as a website. And then it'll look something like this on your mobile device. It normally pops up whenever it wants to use your location services, unless you just have it turned on across the board. And what I generally select on this is allow while using. So it can access my location through my phone's GPS while I'm using the app. So if I open up an app for restaurants, it can tell me the restaurants that are near me while I'm using it, but it's not tracking me when I turn off the app when I exit it. So that's generally what I select. You can do what you're comfortable with. And this is just really super helpful because Of course, when you're traveling, you don't always know the name of the city you're in or the zip code. If you're having a good time, just traveling around and seeing what you find, you may not know. So it's always helpful to turn those things on. And even in the planning stages, it's helpful as well. If you have any more questions about location services, turning it on across the board or turning it off, there is some information included in your handout. Um, and I can definitely go over it. Please let me know if you have any questions. I do only have, my computer and my iPhone with me. So if you have Android specific questions, I won't be able to show you in depth there. But otherwise, I'm happy to show you anything else. Okay, now let's talk a little bit about booking your adventures. There are so many great resources out there to help you book your own adventures. And I just pulled a couple and we'll get going through those. So, Priceline is a website and mobile application, and it's been around for a really long time. It's one of the many, many price comparison apps and websites that help you compare prices for travel. You may have heard of others like Kayak or Expedia, Travelocity, Orbitz. They're all kind of in the same vein of just comparing prices between hotels and rental cars and flights, um, cruises, things like that. So you can use Priceline specifically for your hotel, airfare, rental cars, and cruises, I believe. Just like any search, you'll put in the destination you're looking to go to and the dates you're hoping to travel. And you can take a look at their search limiters. And I'm in the map view of this video right now, looking at hotels in San Francisco. I use San Francisco in my examples in all of the videos in today's presentation, just to kind of have that comparison. So now I'm looking at a hotel that's actually on Priceline, and we can scroll through the pictures to see if, we think the vibe is right for what we're going for. If you're going for super relaxing, if you're going for family friendly, a lot of the hotel pictures can kind of give you an idea. We can also check out the specific rooms. So if you're traveling with many people, you probably want a room that's a little bit more spacious, or maybe a room with a balcony. And we'll see the prices are for the specific room are listed there. And we have the total for all of the nights listed underneath that green number. So that is an awesome thing to use. I generally do a research on a couple different of these price comparison sites because they all do have some deals that are specific to their website. So Travelocity will have a slightly different deals than Priceline, than Kayak or Expedia. So it's worth taking a look at multiple before you necessarily commit and book a hotel via one or the other. I also, if you want to browse incognito or use a private browser when you're doing this price comparison shopping, it can be helpful because there are some schools of thought that say that when you visit these websites and they, give your computer cookies, that they know that you're planning a trip and that they can kind of raise prices on you and you won't necessarily catch it if you're planning a trip over a long period of time. So it might be worth browsing incognito or using private browsing mode if that is something you tend to notice happening. Moving on to our next resource. Hopper is a really unique app and it's just a mobile phone application. Um, and it uses past data and information about current bookings to make pricing predictions about airfare and hotel costs. And it has a really nice visual representation of when things will be less expensive. So that light green color is when it's the least expensive time to travel to San Francisco. And that dark red color is the most expensive time to travel to San Francisco. So you can easily see, oh, September and October, good months to travel. January, December, not great times to travel to San Francisco. So you'll go into the app and select the dates you're interested in traveling, and then it'll do some thinking. Part of the reason I really like Hopper is because it gives you a lot of information that's really helpful when you're planning your trip. So we'll see here in a second that it tells me tickets are on average around $197 a person. But then here, but then when we scroll down a little further, we're going to see, go further down the page, the price prediction. So until September 21st, prices are going to vary, but after September 22nd, they're only going to go up. So I can know as a consumer, if I haven't bought my ticket by September like 20th, I probably need to buy it because it's only going to get more expensive from there. So I generally do use Hopper when I'm booking flights, especially because I really dislike spending so much money to get to a place that, my vacation budget's out the window. I barely have any money to do anything fun. So if I can maximize my vacation funds, I always think that's a great thing. So I do highly recommend Hopper um, if you're looking to fly to a destination. So TripCase is another resource I'll share. Sharing itineraries is really important, whether you're traveling with a big group of friends or whether you're a solo traveler. Um, it's really important that everyone is on the same plan when you're in like foreign territory, even if it's just, a state or two over. It's really important that everyone is on the same game plan. We're all working together to make the trip happen, right? So it's a very simple user interface in TripCase. There's not a whole lot of bells and whistles. It's pretty much just basically forms and different ways to add points of interest to your itinerary. So I especially love this because I do some solo traveling occasionally. This is nice for me to leave behind with my family. And I can either print it out or actually share the link with them so they can see it being edited in real time, so that they know where to reach me at certain points in my trip. If I'm sticking to my itinerary, and I'm the type of person who sticks to an itinerary, they can know that at noon on Saturday, I am driving or I am stopped to get lunch. They can, know that and either call the restaurant I'm supposed to be at or call me. If my phone isn't on, they can assume that I'm driving and things like that. It's also really helpful if you're going on a big group trip and you want everyone to be able to contribute to the itinerary. You can share it and they can edit it as well. Or if you just want everyone to know what's going on. If everyone's going ziplining at 10 and certain people like to sleep late, give them the itinerary. They know where you are. They can come later on if they want to. So I think TripCase is really, really useful, and especially if you're a planner. I'm a big planner, so I love TripCase for that purpose especially. Okay, so we have another one that is just an app, and it is a freemium app. And remember, that means that it is free, but for some of those premium features, they're going to come at an additional cost. So this is RoadTrippers, and this is specifically for planning a road trip. And you can use it to map out your route and discover places along that route. Last road trip I went on was actually last year in August to South Dakota, and I didn't have this app. I only really learned about it in prepping for Tech Tuesdays today, and I am really jealous that I didn't have it. But luckily, I'm going on another road trip this August, so I will definitely be using this then. It is so easy and convenient to find things along your route, so you don't have to do all this extra research using up, all this data trying to Google where you're going or where you think you'll be going. Super nice. So along the route to San Francisco, I'm looking at all the public art along the way. If I wanted to stop and have a, a more valuable stop than just a random rest stop in the middle of Iowa, I could stop and see the Chef Boyardee statue. And there are a lot of different things you can look for along your route. We can look for different places to eat that are close along your route. So if you want to get out of the, habit of just stopping at the nearest McDonald's or Wendy's or whatever, you can stop at well-reviewed restaurants and have a good quality meal while you're on a road trip, at least a time or two, perhaps. And really nice for RV parks. So we see there's this whole stretch without an RV park along our route. So we definitely would want to plan to stop here or there instead of trying to find one in the middle of the route. So we can also share this uh, road trip itinerary via text, via airdrop, Facebook, all of the above with our family and friends. But if we wanted them to collaborate with us and be able to add things to the planned road trip themselves, we need to get that premium version or that premium version, sorry. So Road Trippers, super great. Um, and I will definitely be using it when I go down to Charlotte this summer. Note for this one though, this one will not work properly. The formatting is going to be kind of off on any tablet. So this is the one that is only really designed for mobile phones. And there are a lot more, of course. Nothing is ever exhaustive on Tech Tuesdays. So along with all of the things I've mentioned, most chain hotels and major airlines do have an app of their own um, that you can use to kind of enhance your services there as well. United Airlines, American Frontier, Spirit, all of those guys, they have their own apps that you can use to do things like checking in for your flight, choosing your seat, paying for baggage, registering your luggage, things like that. They have a whole fleet of services, and you pull up your boarding pass, of course, which is always super nice to use less paper and have one less thing to keep track of. And then your hotel chains, your bigger brands like Hilton and Marriott, they also have their apps that provide you with information about amenities as well as checkout times and things like that. Uh, um, in addition to like the Wi-Fi access and how to get to certain things around the hotel. The last time we traveled, I think we, and this was during last summer, so during COVID, we checked out without ever having to talk to a person, which is always cool by me to minimize personal contact. We checked out via the mobile app, which is super cool and really awesome. And I hope that sticks around. And then, of course, city tourism websites and visitors websites are great places to start to research a city, learn about where you may want to stay, where you may want to look for a hotel to stay in, what sort of um, nightlife is in a particular area, or attractions you might want to go to. So for our San Francisco example, our city tourism website for San Francisco is definitely going to have a lot of information about Alcatraz and Ellis Island, things like that. So we can definitely check out the city tourism website to kind of start our planning and booking process. And of course, there are a lot more resources along these lines for booking specifically in on our handout and the planning process in general. All right, so let's switch gears a little bit and talk about how to navigate transportation when you've reached your destination. So, of course, one option for transportation is to get a rental car. But I do want to talk about one specific option for getting a rental car, and that is Turo. So, unlike your Hertz's and your Enterprises, which totally valid, of course you can use, Turo is actually a rental car company born of the sharing economy. So you're actually renting an individual's cars. And a lot of times it's less expensive because instead of renting a 2021, newest model car, um, you can rent an older car for a lot less money than one of the more traditional rental car companies. So I've sorted by price here, and you can see there is a 2011 car. It's not ancient or anything. It's 10 years old that I can rent for $14 a day compared to probably $80 a day in San Francisco, if we're being honest, at a minimum, for a new car from Enterprise. So it's worth taking a look at, especially if you're trying to travel within a budget to a city that might be considered a little bit more expensive, like San Francisco. That is always worth a shot. And of course, with anything in the sharing economy sort of space, you're going to want to check out the reviews because they're going to be pretty telling about whether the owner practices good business, whether they're helpful or whether they're kind of, uh, you know, penny pinching or not really trying to facilitate anyone having a good time. You want to check and make sure that they are on the up and up. Another added benefit of Turo that I've found when I've used them is that there's like no waiting in line. That whole part of the rental car process when you're at the airport after having traveled, you have to wait another 45 minutes to get your car to actually go enjoy your vacation. That's kind of eliminated. Um, I rented a car through Turo, and I think from the time I reached the actual car to the time I was leaving the airport was like 5 minutes. Um, the owner dropped the car off in the parking lot. I took like 15 pictures to verify the condition, uploaded them into Turo, and I was out of there. It was just that simple. So I recommend Turo if you are don't need a 2021 car. And then, of course, there are more transportation options. You don't have to rent a car, especially if you're going to a city or even a mid-sized town. Um, Renting a car does come with a lot of headache. You have to park the car. You have to figure out tolls. You have to figure out if driving restrictions are different, like if they drive on the other side of the road. Um, you can consider using a rideshare service to just alleviate that headache, right? The main difference between rideshare services and taxis, say, which are another option, but generally only in major cities can you just randomly catch a taxi, is that you can't hail a rideshare. So you can't hail a Lyft just by like hanging your hand off the sidewalk. You have to actually use the app and contact them. You put in your destination, and a driver will claim your trip and take you from where you are to where you want to go. And you can pay and tip them all through the app. No muss, no fuss. It is super reasonable generally, and that it should definitely be an option if you don't want to have to rent a car. I will say that the company does verify that your driver has insurance and is a safe driver and not an oddball. So you can kind of know they are qualified to be driving you, kind of like a taxi in that respect. Another option, if you would like to see more of the city, you can look into e-scooters and e-bikes. And this is along with rideshare. All of these options are kind of going to be more, they're not going to be available necessarily in rural places or, secluded beachfront resort areas necessarily. They may be, but I wouldn't necessarily bet on them being there. They'll definitely be in like most of your major cities and bigger towns. So e-scooters and e-bikes is another great option. Some popular ones are Lime, Bird, Bubble. We have a bunch of bubble bike kiosks in Milwaukee, and we've had them for years and years now. So um, they are really simple to use. For the scooters, generally you just download their app and take a picture of the QR code that's somewhere on the scooter itself. Um, you'll have your payment information all loaded up, and it charges you a fee based on the distance you travel. And for the bikes that are in vending machines, you'll just go up to the vending machine, um, pay for the bike, and when you return it, it charges your card based on how long you've had the bike. So it's really simple service to use, and it's great, especially if you know, also want to see the city kind of from the street level. And then, of course, public transportation is always a great option to use and see the city, especially if you're interested in seeing the city more like a local. This is obviously going to be way more doable in cities that have robust public transportation. Cities like New York and DC, um, internationally, London, Paris, Tokyo, Beijing, like those cities have super robust public transportation and are going to be a lot easier to travel in than, say, if you were going to Rapid City, South Dakota, which is the place I stopped over my road trip last summer. So if you are going to a city, definitely consider using public transportation. I'm going to talk on the next slide about a resource that makes using public transportation as a tourist a lot easier. I definitely have a hard time figuring out bus lines, even in Milwaukee. So they kind of take some of the guesswork out for you. Um, to back up tick and talking about e-scooters and e-bikes, I will mention e-scooters and e-bikes might not be for everyone because you do need to obey the local rules and the local etiquette surrounding the use of the e-scooters and e-bikes. A lot of times you're not supposed to be riding these on the sidewalk, and you need to be wearing a helmet, a helmet when you're using them for safety reasons. So if those two things don't mesh with you, you might want to consider utilizing some of the others. And in general, I would say a combination of all three, if you're in a big enough city or if you feel comfortable using all three, is always a great place to start. If you use all three, you can generally get where you need to be if you're, stationed in the city you're hoping to explore. All right. So,
Hey, Lydia, before you move on, there was a question about insurance for the Turo app.
mhm.
Or Susan would like to know if you rent with Turo for the insurance, she's supposed to carry the insurance, or how do they know that the car itself is insured by the person that's lending it?
Sure. The car has to be insured to be on the Turo app. I'm not an insurance adjuster. This is, take
Yes.
everything I say with a grain of salt. I barely understand insurance as it is, but the car has to be insured by the owner to be on the Turo app. They have to provide all that documentation before they can even be listed, first of all. And then Turo does offer you, like any other rental car company, the ability to purchase that secondary insurance. However, it is my understanding that depending on what sort of level you have with your own insurance company, they may cover that for you, but I don't know. So um, it's just like a traditional rental car company in that facet. The car does have its own insurance, but if you mess it up, chances are you're going to have to, pay for it or make a claim on your insurance for it.
Awesome.
Good question.
I think that is it for now for questions. And then just to remind everyone, you can certainly put those questions in the Q&A and I will ask them. Thank you.
Thanks, Beth. All right. So we go forward. No matter what you decide to use for transportation, especially if you're not renting a car, Citymapper is a great resource because it will literally tell you all of your options for traveling within most major cities. It's not available in every major city, but available in, I want to say, over 35 of the biggest cities. So you'll just type in where you are and where you want to go. So your start point and your end point. We're still using our San Francisco example here. And it'll give you directions if you choose to walk or bike, and it'll give you those pedestrian friendly and bike friendly routes so you don't accidentally end up walking onto a busy freeway. So we can see here it's giving us a walk option, a bike option, an Uber option, a Lyft option, a Lime option, as well as a Bay Wheels option. And then down below, it gives us the bus routes that we can take to get to our destination. Really cool. Really cool. Now, of course, if you just want to walk to, your nearest locations, this is still a great option because it'll still guide you in that respect through those pedestrian friendly routes. So you're not going to end up somewhere with no sidewalk, which has happened to me when I'm using just regular GPS because it doesn't necessarily know you're walking unless you remember to select that option. Um, yeah, and I just think it's really great for exploring a city. So same thing, we're looking at another location. We've chosen the bike route, and it's going to give us options for getting to the library in San Francisco. So Citymapper really helps you if you decide not to rent a car when you travel to combine all of those ways of travel. You might not necessarily know which companies have a stake in the market you're in. So, for example, we have Lyft and Uber here in Milwaukee, but there are some cities that one or the other has a way bigger market share. You're going to be able to get one way easier than you will be able to get the other. You wouldn't necessarily know that, but Citymapper will kind of help guide you through that process. So let's talk about road trips specifically because taking a road trip requires a certain amount of planning that you for transportation purposes that you might not have to do if you're just, you know, flying into a city and going to a resort or flying into a city that you expect to stay in. So we'll talk more about that. Gas Buddy is an app designed to track gas prices. It uses crowdsourced data to tell you where the lowest gas prices are near you. And it tends to be pretty accurate because, its community of users is verifying the price of gas whenever they stop. Um, you definitely need your location services turned on for Gas Buddy to be really worth it, especially if you're actively traveling. But if you can save a quarter for every gallon of tank you fill up your car, if you, which may equate to like $5 every time you fill up your car and you're driving 1,000 miles, it really can add up. So it's definitely worth downloading Gas Buddy if you're planning any extensive road trips. Now, iExit is another great resource for your road trip because it uses your location services to determine what attractions are specifically off your next exit when you're on the freeway. So you can see that, okay, the next exit on I-94 is like 314. So if we get off here, we'll have this restaurant and a Chuck E. Cheese and a mall that we can stop at. So you can kind of, see what is available to you as you're traveling. And then, of course, you have your GPS applications, your Apple Maps, your Google Maps, and Waze. Those are all great for you to use while you're traveling. Um, although I do, Me personally, I do still carry a paper road atlas, even though it might be less in date. It might be a little out of date. Um, I don't always have service, especially if I'm going through any sort of area that looks like the one in this picture here. My phone probably isn't going to work that well. So I do carry a paper atlas with me just as a backup, and probably because, I grew up reading paper maps, so I'm comfortable doing it. So I do recommend that even if you don't have a full atlas, you can always check out one from the library if you'd like to do that. But at least printing out the map of where you're going just as a extra, precautionary factor. All right. So we talked a little bit about transportation. Now let's talk about how you're going to find those fun and awesome things to do in your new city that you're traveling to. Travel guides are a really great place to start. And these are a couple that are available at the library. We have so many travel guides from so many different publishers. Some of the popular ones are Lonely Planet, Time Out, Moon Guides, and Photos Travel. And literally, we have so many of these, and we would love for you to check them out. We have them for places all over the world and a lot for places in the United States as well. Um, in addition to that, a lot of the bigger cities and towns, like I mentioned, have their own app or website specifically designed to attract visitors and tourists and conventions and things like that. And they may also have, information on all of their attractions that they want you to come and do. So, like I mentioned, the San Francisco one, Alcatraz, Angel Island, definitely information about the Redwoods, Fisherman's Wharf, taking a streetcar, all that sort of information will be freely available to you on the Visit San Francisco website. And I definitely think as far as travel guides are concerned, you can definitely do all of this virtually and do it all online, but there's something different about holding on to a physical book and putting post-its on the pages where there are things you want to go to. For me, at least, it gives me a pleasant feeling that I'm doing something because I have a book with post-its in it. All right, so under activities, I included the Wi-Fi map tool, and it is a free Wi-Fi finder. And a lot of us are, needing to check our work emails or to video chat with people back home. So this is a great resource, especially if your hotel doesn't provide free Wi-Fi. Um, this will help you find a plethora of free Wi-Fi available near your location. This is also really useful for when you need to purchase tickets to take the ferry or purchase tickets to go on a tour or, you know, a whole variety of things. A lot of things now you have to book an appointment to go to that were just, freely open to the public. You got to book that appointment, and you need stable Wi-Fi in order to do that. So I've included the Wi-Fi map, super useful there. Now, if you're on a road trip or a long flight, you might want to work some activities in there before you even actually get to your destination. You can consider bringing along or just playing some travel games, particularly if you're traveling with young people who, get bored and destructive when they're traveling. There are so many of these. I don't know that all of them will work, but they're all worth a shot, I'd say. All you have to do is do a Google search for travel games and the age group you're looking for. There's travel games for adults and there's travel games for toddlers, like runs the whole gamut. Um, and maybe you can help make the getting to your destination portion a little bit more bearable for everyone involved if you play some fun games along the way. Perhaps. Now, we'll just touch briefly on foreign language and currency. Um, there are a lot of different ways you can learn a language, or at least study up on some key phrases before you go with the library. But if you're not super interested in that, or it's a language that you just cannot grasp, there are a couple of good options for you to use to help you communicate. So, Google Translate is obviously one of the biggest and most accessible translator apps. So, what I would do with Google Translate, and we're using Japanese in this example, is download the app to my phone and have it listen via the microphone to what the person was saying to me in Japanese. In this case, what is your name? And then I would switch the language, translating from English to Japanese via the phone, and say, my name is Lydia. And then through the speaker, I would have my phone speak in Japanese what I had just said in English. So I kind of illustrated for you that for you on this slide. Um, and that can really just help you communicate, especially for simple things. If you're just meeting people out and about and you want to at least say to them, I'm sorry, I don't speak Japanese, you can do that. And it is also really helpful for if you do want to learn those key phrases, where's the bathroom? How do I get here? Those more things you kind of are expected to know a little bit. You can put your question in on the English side and it will translate it into Japanese and then it will say it for you. So even if you can't, learn the grammatical pieces of a foreign language, you can definitely learn just the pure phonetics of how to say, where's the bathroom, please? So it's very, very helpful in that respect. And then our final resource we'll talk about today is XE Currency, which has real time currency values when you are exchanging your dollars to pounds or francs or what have you. Because this actually changes multiple times a day. So you always want to make sure, especially when you're exchanging that money, like when you first get off the plane, that you know what you're exchanging your money for. Of course, there'll be some service fees involved in all that, but you want to be aware of what you're actually supposed to be getting and making sure everything is on the up and up. And then I also like using this because I have a lot of difficulty like doing on the fly math in my head, especially when I'm, around strangers and whatnot. So I find this really helpful, like when I'm shopping in Mexico or whatever, years ago, not anytime recently, of understanding what 150 pesos actually means, because 150 sounds like a lot, but pesos is the exchange rate to dollars is super different. So doing all that math in my head kind of left me flustered and I would never end up buying anything. But I think if I had something like this where I could just plug in 150 pesos and see that it's like $2, that would make me a little bit more comfortable actively, shopping and supporting their local communities down there. So I highly recommend getting this one. It's a mobile application as well as a website, so you can kind of take the math out of shopping with foreign currency. All right. And that is all I have for you. Are there any questions today? I'm more than happy to go through anything live. I know the videos kind of went fast there.
All right. Yeah, there's a couple.
Okay.
Jeanette would like to know, do you recommend a specific publisher for travel guides so they have Lonely Planet versus Voters, for example?
I really don't. It's gonna be so particular, and whenever I'm looking for travel guides on a specific place, I tend to take every one that the library has, um, because they cover a lot of the same stuff, but sometimes the voice is more personal versus being like an objective journalist writing, and then sometimes the just a couple of months difference in published dates, like 6 months, means a difference, a whole difference in how much something costs to do, or the open hours of a thing, or, you know, it just can make a difference. So I always get everything that's available at the library. And then if one speaks to me more than the other, or I find that one is okay, I really like this photos version, for example, I will purchase that version and then like write all up in it. Not in the library version. I will purchase my own version after having kind of done my preliminary research at the library. Then I can take that one on my trip with me. So that's kind of the way I go through things. I don't have an actual recommendation though. Sorry.
All right. Maureen asks, with Google Translate, can you store FAQ there ahead of time for easy access and somehow hit it when you need it?
I haven't seen a way that you can do that. No. But like I mentioned, you can just like speak it into Google Translate. And that kind of cuts down on the time of things. Let's see if I can pull it up here. So I will provide you with an example. Hi, Maureen. How are you? So that's pretty quick. Thanks for the question, Maureen.
All right. Let's see. There's questions in both the Q&A and chat, so I'm just trying to take them in order here. Somebody would like to know, how far in advance should you plan your family vacation, especially if you are flying?
It all depends, right? So the first thing I would do if I was planning to fly anywhere, especially with like multiple people, is get on Hopper like right now and start watching your trip so you can see how the price fluctuates, see when the least expensive time to fly is, if cost is a factor. Of course, I know cost isn't a factor for everyone. I am just a recently poor college student, so cost is a big factor for me when I'm planning travel. So the first thing I would do is get on Hopper and start watching the dates you're trying to go. Even if it is a more expensive time, you can kind of, cut it down by watching and seeing when a miracle deal might come out. Um, Generally, I think it's at least 3 months that you want to plan out, no more than 6, because things, tend to change around 6 months' time. Don't take anything I say as gospel, though. There are better guides and resources for planning for family trips, especially than me, because I've never actually planned a family trip. I've only planned trips for me and one other person. But thank you for your question, though. I can send you along some resources in the follow-up email more suited to the family specific aspect of it.
Okay. Let's see. Regina would like to know if you have any information for travelers with mobility and accessibility needs for travel in hotels.
Sure. So if you are searching for hotels through any of those price comparison websites, you can actually search by, I think it's under amenities, but by the different functions you might need to make your hotel stay enjoyable. And, you know, whether you need a first floor room or a room that has like a larger bathroom or a balcony or whatever you specifically need for your disability while you're traveling, you can look for a hotel that has handicapped rooms and things of that nature. So you can absolutely kind of limit it when you're searching through hotels. Like, that's a great question.
Awesome. I found a book that you can put on hold through County CAD called Accessible Vacations: An Insider's Guide to 12 US Cities. That's from 2020. So that might be a good one to put on hold as well to get an overview. So I will drop that
Definitely.
link in the chat for everybody. And then let's see, the next question is, could you please repeat the name of the app that gives you attractions, etc., along your driving route? Carol was wondering about that.
Sure, Road Trippers. Road Trippers is that one. So really cool. I'm definitely going to be using that come August to help me plan out my route with my mother-in-law and my husband for 16 hours.
Yeah, I think that'll be a good idea.
Mhm.
Awesome. I don't see any other questions, just some comments about being a great presentation. Thank you. And yeah, that's about it, it looks like.
Done. Thank you all so much for coming today. Um, like I said, there will be a follow-up email on Thursday. Next week's awesome topic by the wonderful Kelly O'Malley is support me on Patreon. That should be a great presentation. I hope some of you will join us for that. And then the final Tech Tuesdays of spring is coming up on June 1st. So, and that is all about accessibility features on your smart devices. So that one will be a great one to attend. Thank you all so much for coming. Have a wonderful week, and we'll see you next time.